Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful empowered harmonizers. And we are zooming in and focusing in what I feel is a very important topic, and that is how to understand when the body is running the brain in a malignant, covert, narcissist, or psychopathic relationship. What happens when you're essentially addicted to a set of feelings? What happens when you're addicted to a set of behaviors? What happens when you're addicted to a specific situation and you're really essentially out of control? And this is then, excuse me, creating a sort of feeling of trepidation, uncertainty, and lack of self-trust and self-awareness in relationships, and how to really move beyond this successfully, how to acknowledge this, how to know this within yourself, and then move forward knowing that you're making the right decision. But before we get started, I want to give a huge shout out to those of you who have recently donated to the channel. Whoop whoop, we have Michigan in the house. Love Michigan. Thank you so much for your donations. It's viewers like you who are helping to keep the channel alive, to keep the content fresh. And thank you so much for your contributions, your questions, your comments, and your support. And we are going to, and of course, if I've been a positive influence or impact in your life, you absolutely positively can participate and give back to the channel. There's a little PayPal Donate Now button on the homepage where you can make a donation to the Peace and Harmony channel. So thank you so much. It's an honor and a privilege to be able to provide these tools and resources. So we're going to zoom in and focus in a little bit more in depth what I basically want to call when the body is running the brain. When your body, your limbic system, your physiology, your unconscious mind is running the show, and keeping you stuck in a malignant or toxic relationship with an abuser, an emotional manipulator, someone who may or not be malignant narcissist, psychopathic, someone who has committed some atrocities against you and has gotten you feeling in a trauma bond, or where your feelings are running the show and you're no longer able to think clearly, make decisions that are in your best interest. Instead, you're making decisions to keep a pathological or toxic negative relationship in place. And how to sort it out. How do you know the difference? How do you know really what's in your best interest? Well, when you look at the forbidden pleasures that are part of a psychopathic relationship, particularly when this individual has lied pathologically, you have exposed them. You've seen a number of different traits that have made a negative gouge or impact in your life. In other words, a whole series of pathological lies. They have cheated on you. They have betrayed your trust. They have violated your boundaries. They have worn you out. And they have hyper-aroused you, hyper-sexualized to the point where you're pining after that experience, and you then begin to make excuses and buy the excuses that they are putting forth. In other words, you're not thinking very clearly. You find that you're really engulfed in these oceanic feelings. And yes, every romantic relationship, you're going to have this stage, of course, or it might be a slow, passion. But when you find that you're craving specific things like just their affection, just the sex, just the intimacy, despite you have information to the contrary that they are not in your best corner, they are not supportive of you, they have done things that have violated your trust, your boundaries, and your standards, it's to realize that you are then lowering your boundaries or making them null and void. You're lowering your standards, you're making these null and void, and then you're giving this person to just you're giving them permission to wreak havoc in your life. In havoc meaning, you are being slowly but surely broken down, or you're being fed a lot of false promises. Your body is then running the show. Your mind and your thought process is no longer able to think and perceive things clearly. You're not able to see that I really want C, D, E, and F, and then A, B, are not adding up, and you're not really getting what you want. You're being sort of pulled forward, and your relationship is taking on too much of the thrill, too much of the stress, too much of the drama. And, there are some people who are willingly addicted to this. Some people who then are unwillingly addicted to this. So some people who know better, they want to play with this. And so if that is you, and you say, okay, well, I am not concerned or worried, about what they're putting me through. I don't care that I'm, waking up hungover, or I don't care that I'm waking up feeling sick, or I don't care that I'm waking up exhausted. I don't care that I've had this history of, drama, or the police being called. I don't care about this. This is the life for me. Well, if you've committed to your life, then you have only yourself to blame for the consequences that are to come, i.e., namely, that this ultimately will not be your mainstay. This person, what they've done to you, they're going to do to somebody else. A psychopath who really does not have any value system, moral compass. They don't have a sort of a bond or loyalty to people, even despite the fact that they're married, even despite the fact that they have children. They might have had a job for a specific amount of time. It's no grave value to them. They continue to feel that what they have in terms of manipulating, going against the norm, standing out to themselves in this way is enough. And so it is to realize that, you're going to perpetuate a cycle of victimization in your life. And your body then is running the show. In other words, what are you physically being addicted within this person? Is it the affection? Is it the way that they calm you down? Is it the way that they rise you up? And does it leave you feeling exhausted or empty? Or do you feel that you are filled up, fulfilled, happy, and then on a good direction for your life that's actually going to result in something positive, substantial, tangible? There's a real clear, I would say, difference once you've been with these people for a certain amount of time versus what you have versus what you have not. And generally, you want to have versus have not. Have a relationship versus have not. A real relationship. An experience with these people is not a long-term relationship, because eventually things are, you're going to learn otherwise. When you're dealing with someone who does not have empathy, and they have a sort of, really ballooning self-importance, this person is always going to do what is in their best self-interest. And so when you lose the job, when you lose the money, when you lose the good looks, when you lose the health, this person will not be there. Right when you need them the most, or a good person, a good friend, a good spouse would be there for you. In fact, this is when they would step up their game. They'd say, OMG, let's make sure you have the best care. Can I drive you here? Can I make sure your pillow is good here? Can I make sure you have the food? Is it warm enough? A person who would really then take care of you is the sign, and I would say the true yardstick of a good relationship. In other words, they don't need you to be perfect for them. They don't need, every hair to be in place all the time. They don't need your job to be such and such. They don't need your income to be this and that. They don't need your appearance, your doubt, what you're giving to them sexually to be what the relationship is all about. This becomes too much to hold there's more than, this glue that will hold the relationship together. So it can become a feeling of an external locus of control, or that these conditions must be met each and every time for the relationship to receive its merit. So there's always going to be these conditions. And, in other words, what would the relationship be without the sex? What would the relationship be without the this? You have to look and understand that, and then realize it's time for you to get some control over the body and to see where perhaps you're becoming physically addicted to this person, or to the fear or the feelings with which they are perpetuating within you. Now, the psychopath unequivocally knows through a deliberate and calculated manner the addiction with which they're setting up. They know that they can get by just on a look. They know that they can get by with just a comment. They know that they can sink their talons into your heart, and then they can just feed you up a bunch of lies where if you were in the clear and if you were thinking straight, you would be able to know that this is not making sense. You would be able to become sensitive to the cognitive dissonance. In other words, if they're making excuses, well, I couldn't get together for this holiday because this and this. This was my family, or I missed your birthday, or, I was acting this way because. If they're giving you a line of malarkey after, I did this to you because, and then they're giving you malarkey and you're not taking it as the malarkey that it is, then you're not seeing where things should really add up. In other words, you're not able to see through the fog. You're getting too controlled by this individual. And yes, there's a certain relief in not having to be responsible all the time. We don't have to go through life alone. We don't have to go it alone. It can be a rough journey. It's good to have companionship. But look at the quality of the companionship that perhaps is just trying to bide you time until you're really, needing to come to the ultimate awareness and consciousness, and, the ultimate comprehension that perhaps this relationship isn't going to give you the real thing, that it's costing you too much emotionally to keep it going. And so once you see that and you go, whoa, I need to put the brakes on it because this person isn't going to put the brakes. The narcissist is going to juggle supply. The psychopath is going to keep you hyper-aroused. They're going to have their, they're going to addict you physically as well. It's a specific sort of release that they are able to get their hook into with people. There's a specific feeling, whether it can be, a certain type of humor. But always, when you look at their humor, usually the joke is on you. And so you don't want, the hole gets deeper and deeper within you the longer you perpetuate it and you allow your body to be running the show. Anxiety also, I feel. If you are constantly made to feel anxious, uncomfortable, your body is running the show. What about this experience has put in and instilled this fear in you? You can't make it alone. You're not good enough. You're not smart enough. Your skin is not the right color. Your hair is not the right color. Your hair is not the right haircut. You are awful. Whatever the words that they had told you, get those words out of your system so that your body is not running the show anymore. Oftentimes, like studies have shown, the hypercriticism from those emotionally manipulative individuals are received by the body just like an attack. And it's like the modern day saber-toothed tiger. When you are assailed with criticism that goes beyond constructive, that goes beyond normal. You can't cut a carrot. You can't make a cup of coffee. You don't know how to spoon a teaspoon of sugar. I mean, these are the sort of comments that a narcissist or someone who is psychopathic, who's trying to really get control of you, is trying to push your buttons. They get very good at pushing your buttons physically, emotionally, and thus psychologically. Your body is then running the show by their button pushing. The psychopath, without a doubt, knows how to push people's buttons. They take copious amounts of time learning and studying how to do this throughout their life. And they're able to see exactly what your buttons are, your hot buttons, your cold buttons. They know just what button to push. When that happens, and then you're in this reactive mode, maybe I should go back, maybe I should backslide, I'm going to pounce now, then you know that you're being reactive and your buttons are being pushed by this individual. You have to get rid of the buttons. You have to get rid of the, touch sensitive keypad. You know, in other words, what you put forth to them, no matter what they do, tap, 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 click, 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 button, button, they're not going to get any reaction out of the screen from you. You're going to be calm, indifferent, neutral, and at peace. You are in control. If you have avoided this feeling, then it's time to say, OMG, you know, I have allowed myself, through a grave error of judgment of my own, unbeknownst to me, I thought this was in the name of love or in a happy life, but I've allowed myself to become overly intoxicated by this feeling, by this fear, by this hyper-arousal, and this really is not good, you know, good for me. And even though it's difficult to go clean, I must go. I must rid myself and my body. I must purge my body and allow my body to calm down from this hyper-arousal, this hyper-anxiety, this feeling like that they know me best versus me knowing me best, and me being able to put my A and B decisions together so I can actually get to C. And it's to realize that these individuals aren't going to get you where you want to go, and to be dependent on them is to be really unhappy. Being dependent on another, codependent, is to commit to a life of others having control over you like a roller coaster. I'm happy, then I'm sad, and I'm scared, and I'm waiting for them, and then your life is other directed. And you might think that this is the right pattern for you to format your relationships until an exposure shows you otherwise. That's why oftentimes these relationships are the biggest lessons. You learn that the happiness has to come from within. The better self-talk has to come from within. The feeling of being able to live in peace has to come from within. That it can't be determined by this moving target that is outside of you. This person who is apt to, up and hit the pavement when the time gets the most important. You can't put your faith in this type of relationship. Your faith has to be within. And so you have to keep the faith, and you have to know what it means to have faith. Because to be disappointed in this way is to really hurt more on down the road. So the longer you put off this awareness and this understanding, the harder it's going to get to, and then you're wasting your precious time by learning this lesson like later in life. So it's to understand that, that someone who does this, is showing a certain degree of moral flaw, personality flaw, and, you just want to make sure that you're not a victim of this, because these individuals will take victims. In fact, they oftentimes delight in taking victims. They feel, oh, look at me, I had power and control, and they feel powerful. They're able to get a sense of significance this way. And it's not the good kind of significance, like, oh, we have a future together. It's like, look what they did for me during this period of life. And I was just, part of the back that they walked on so that they could get, up their ladder. And I never got a chance to go up my own ladder. In fact, I'm scurrying back down my ladder, and I'm way in a place where I don't want to be. So realize and try and ask yourself these questions. And in this privacy of this video, have I allowed too much of my body and to run the show, to run too much of the relationship? In what degree have I allowed myself to become too intoxicated by the sugar of this relationship or the poison of this relationship? And see and be unequipped and trust yourself when you answer these questions. If you're used to doubting yourself, ask to what degree have I allowed myself to go too overboard? And, being able to admit to yourself and have a rigorous honesty where and when this is, and to say, okay, I'm actually safer and happier keeping myself disciplined. I'm actually happier and safer keeping myself to a schedule that is in my best interest, in keeping myself to a structure of relationships, boundaries, and standards that are actually in my best interest, and then don't keep me on the stoop. Don't keep me on the down low. Don't keep me under, out of the momentum of my healing. It is to understand and be very, very clear in what is positive and what is not, what is positive and what is not, and to try to get rid of some of the gray areas that this addiction to these types of relationships will try to keep you under, those gray areas, those gray clouds where you're being you're being kept from the light, truly your light, your awareness, and your happiness. It is all for you and your best interest. This is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today, and I hope that these videos do help. Please share and please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support. Love you.